One winter morning, deep in the heart of Alberta's frozen wilderness, Jake Logan woke to a silence so absolute, it felt like the world itself had stopped breathing. The thermometer on his porch read minus 45 degrees Celsius. Outside, everything was locked in ice. Trees, grass, even the air seemed frozen in place. Snowflakes hung suspended in gusts of wind that howled like lost spirits across the land. Jake, born and raised in this cold country, had seen harsh winters, but never a morning like this. He poured himself a mug of steaming coffee, trying to shake off the heaviness in the air. He turned on the television to check the forecast, but something pulled his attention toward the window. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. Then he froze. There, right at the window, stood a massive grizzly bear, not moving, not growling, tapping, soft, rhythmic, purposeful. Her fur was caked with frost, her massive body trembling slightly. Her breath clouded the glass, and her dark eyes, deep golden and pleading, locked onto his. Jake stood motionless. He should have backed away. He should have been afraid. But he couldn't move. Behind her, in the swirling white chaos of the snowstorm, he saw them. 3 cubs, barely moving, huddled close together in the cold. One of them collapsed. The mother bear turned, gently picked up the smallest cub in her jaws, and brought it closer. She raised it and pressed the tiny body to glass. Then she looked at Jake again. Her eyes didn't demand. They begged. She raised both front paws slowly, held them close to her chest, almost like she was praying. Jake's heart cracked. He had seen wild animals his whole life, but never this. Never such intentional grace. Never a call for help so silent, so human. He walked to the door. His hand trembled on the knob. He unlocked it and opened it just a crack. The mother bear stepped forward, laid her cub gently on the wooden threshold, and stepped back. Jake bent down. The cub was cold, limp, barely alive. He brought it inside. Warm air met its frozen body, and the cub twitched, let out the softest groan. Still alive, Jake looked at the mother. She turned to the other cubs, then back to him. He understood. He opened the door wider. The 2 remaining cubs followed, cautiously stepping into the cabin. And then, slowly, carefully, the mother bear entered. She stopped at the threshold. She brushed her paws on the mat. She walked with quiet purpose, not like a wild animal, but like a guest who understood where she was. She lay beside her cubs near the fireplace. Jake brought blankets. She let him. She nudged the fabric gently with her snout, wrapping her babies tighter. Outside, the storm screamed, but inside that small wooden cabin, something extraordinary unfolded. A wild animal had asked for help and trusted a man enough to walk through his door. The cubs didn't climb or claw. They didn't destroy. They simply lay close to their mother, healing in the warmth. Jake sat in silence, watching, breathing slowly. Every so often, the mother would look up at him, and in her gaze, there was no fear, only peace. For hours, they stayed like that. A man, a mother, 3 cubs, all huddled in a fragile bubble of warmth, while the world outside howled on in frozen fury. And then, just as quietly as it had begun, the storm began to fade. The winds softened. The sky turned pale. The mother bear rose. She licked her cubs awake, gently nudging them to stand. Then she turned to Jake. Together, they walked toward the door. One by one, the cubs crossed the threshold, each step slow and deliberate, as they understood that this house had been a sanctuary. The mother bear lingered. She stepped closer to Jake, and then, in a gesture that would stay with him for the rest of his life, she lifted her paw and placed it softly on his arm, not in threat, not in fear, but in something deeper. Thanks. Then she turned, walked out into the snow, and vanished with her children into the endless white forest. Jake stood in the open doorway for a long time, watching the place where they had disappeared. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. But something inside him shifted forever. He had opened his door to the wild, and the wild had opened its heart to him. Every winter after that, Jake kept the porch swept. He left the door unlocked, just in case. Not out of fear, not out of hope, but out of respect. Because once, in the middle of the coldest winter Alberta had ever seen, the wild had come knocking, not to harm, not to take, but to ask. And he had answered, and that made all the difference.